Hello, this is a recorded version of a presentation that we hosted through DBSA California back in January of this year. We re-recorded it because we had some breakout room activities, and that just doesn't translate super well to a recorded presentation. So all that being said, welcome to anybody who is tuning in right now. My name is Caroline, and I'll be leading the fifth out of seven workshops, all related to career navigation for people with mood disorders. That's not to say that these tips are not helpful for anybody with any kind of mental health condition, and even without mental health conditions. However, coming from my lived experience as somebody with a mood disorder, that's kind of where I'm coming from at this. All that being said, the topic of today's presentation is anchoring your worth, which is about offer negotiation. So, with all that said, there we go. Obviously this doesn't apply, but we did use this in the presentation. Remember to keep your microphone on mute, all that good stuff. If you do have any questions, you can always email the DBSA California main line, and we'll be happy to get back to you. So the lineup here, we'll start with common job benefits of interest to people with mood disorders, evaluating what is most important to you in an offer when you do get that offer, negotiating. We did have time to practice within the workshop, but I'll just kind of show you what the exercise is, and then you can sort of do it at home or practice it on your own. Navigating declining an offer or balancing multiple offers. And then finally, some next steps and resources. But before we get into that, hi, I am Caroline. I am a career advisor. That is my profession. I also live with cyclothymia and OCD. So my perspective for this presentation is as somebody who's worked in multiple different industries, years working in career services, and lived experience as somebody with a mood disorder. And also, just a disclaimer, I am not claiming to know all of the answers, but these are some things that I've noticed both in theory and in practice that have worked for many people, and a little bit more tailored to people with mood disorders, just because that's the perspective I'm coming from. To begin, congratulations, your hard work has paid off and you've been made an offer. That's worth celebrating. But now it's time to figure out what you want beyond the job itself. So with that said, offers are more than just salary. While it is important what the salary is, and of course you want to make that work with your lifestyle and what you need, there are also many other fringe benefits that could be just as valuable and sometimes a little bit more than salary. And we'll talk about those kinds of scenarios. So wellness. It's a key consideration for anyone, but particularly crucial if you are living with a mental health condition. Like living with any other chronic condition, it's something that you should consider when you're negotiating. So with that said, here's a couple of things to consider when you are negotiating this offer. One common benefit, well, these are quite a few common benefits to consider as somebody with a mood disorder, not all encompassing. Things will be important to one person versus another one in varying degrees. But these are some of the most common ones that are useful for people with mood disorders. The first one, of course, is health insurance. Often this is medical, dental, and vision. Usually they are separated. I can't speak to every single one, but most of the places I've seen have had them as separate coverage. Pay particular attention to whether mental health services are covered. Sometimes they're covered to varying degrees. Sometimes they're fully covered. Well, hopefully that's the case. That's always great. And also sort of understand the HMO versus PPO situation. So HMO, you're kind of assigned a doctor and you have to get referrals for different services versus PPO, you have a little bit more flexibility. And of course, those come at different price points. So you just want to make sure the health insurance benefits that are offered are ones that would work for you to continue to keep yourself healthy. The second is employee assistance programs. This is usually abbreviated as an EAP. And these are resources for employee well-being that could include counseling, referrals to therapists, self-guided courses, and assessments. So this usually employers will include as an additional benefit beyond just health insurance. So you may have access to mental health services that way too. They're a great little addition that many employers do include within their benefits. The next is health and wellness incentives. Going beyond the EAP resources and the health insurance, sometimes employers offer some really great benefits in terms of general health and wellness. This can include a gym membership, offsetting fitness expenses. Sometimes they have sort of like a flexible spending account specifically for fitness expenses, and subscriptions to meditation apps. Some places offer a certain amount of free therapy, or they have an in-house therapist. So individual companies kind of vary on these, but these are all worth considering when you're considering an offer. And then time off and leave. Many types of leave are offered, including vacation, separate sick time. Sometimes they're combined together in just paid time off or PTO. Holidays. And then, of course, there's disability, parental leave for either yourself or to take care of a family member. If you are if you've had a child or you're planning to have a child or planning to adopt a child, oftentimes they have specific leave for that. And in some cases, they do offer sabbatical for people who want to just take some time to themselves after, being with the company for a certain amount of time. So definitely take a look at those. Particularly leave is something that you should evaluate, just as a resource for ongoing health. We also will have a presentation all about disability leave and whatnot later in this series. Some other benefits that are worth considering, again, not exhaustive, but these are some common ones that I've seen in US companies. They can also vary outside of the US. But 401k or 403b, this is retirement savings. Some employers, well, of course, they offer it and you can pay into it, but some employers will match your coverage. So, for example, at my place of employment, if I put in 5%, they'll put in 10%. So that's a really good matching benefit. It's essentially free money that you can have in retirement. So that's always a great benefit that's included. Tuition assistance. This you typically will see this at higher education institutions, but there are also other companies that encourage you to continue your education and give you a certain amount of tuition assistance. This is one that I've benefited from, and I can say that it definitely made a difference in terms of me going on for higher education. So that's a great benefit. And sometimes they will offer tuition assistance for your spouse or your children to continue their education as well. It just kind of depends on the individual employer. But typically, I'll see this in higher education or education environments in general. Childcare and elder care assistance. They might have particular facilities they contract with. They might have an on-site assistance or something like that. So that is something that is a benefit that's offered by some employers. A signing bonus, so you kind of get a lump sum right when you sign. Pet insurance. This is one I've also benefited from because I have cats. So this is insurance for your pet for any kind of regular vet costs. As well as ongoing wellness. They've become much more inclusive of those things in recent years. So this is a great benefit that I've seen pop up a lot more frequently in recent years. And it's a great one that I definitely recommend if you have pets. Legal assistance. You can also sign up for that. They can help you with wills, any kind of legal matters you might be going through. That's a great benefit as well. Equity in the company. And way more. There's any number of different benefits that you should definitely review when you get an offer. So we did this as a live activity in the presentation, but I encourage you to pause the video, take about 5 minutes, and reflect on what benefits would be important to you in a job offer. You can also rewind it and kind of see the things I just spoke about to see if any of those resonate with you. You can also Google too and sort of see what benefits are common within the industry you're interested in, and reflect on 2 or 3 that what you would really value in a job. And just set that aside. That's something to sort of think about as you're moving through this presentation and as you're thinking about your job offer. or offer in general. So we've sort of evaluated all of the different benefits. Let's get down to brass tacks. Negotiating. So negotiating can be scary, but it does not have to be. I'm going to do a little bit of a run through of what we covered in the presentation, but also know that there was a live activity that we did. And we'll get into that in just a moment. So let's start off with the easiest scenario. You don't want the job. That you just want to make sure you're being direct about it and you're being gracious. You don't need to get into a ton of detail about why you don't want the job, but do be polite and timely in responding to them. So leave it off on a good note. Say thank you so much. I really appreciate it. This just doesn't work with my plan right now, but I really appreciate it. And just be aware they might come back and say, oh, well, is there something we can do to improve upon it? But if it's something that is just not going to work for you, just be gracious and direct about it. You don't want to burn any bridges. And sometimes you get what you want. Sometimes the offer is generous. They've researched how much is the typical pay. They're looking for everything that you want and everything. In those cases, you don't have to negotiate if you don't want to. So if it's something that's like everything you wanted and more, and that sounds good to you, you don't have to negotiate at all. So just know that that sometimes happens. And if you're lucky enough to be in that situation, even better. But if you would like to negotiate, make sure you prioritize what it is you want. So, again, going back to that list of what are the things that are most important to you might help here. Determine what is the most important thing you want out of the offer that you want to negotiate for. From there, you want to focus on one or two that you really want to negotiate for. So that also means, maybe you want three things, but the most important to you are this one. So maybe it's like, you really need the salary to be a certain level. But you also value paid time off and tuition assistance or something like that. Factor that in and see, how you want to negotiate. Listen, all this is great. I'm looking for this. This is like what I need, and versus this would be what I want. So just prioritizing that is important here. So some tips for negotiating. The first is to do your research, particularly for salary. If you have research to suggest that the offered salary is low, you can sort of say, I've noticed on my research, like this tends to be the average rate. And then sort of apply that to your education, your experience, all that stuff. So coming with receipts essentially is very helpful here, and we'll sort of build your case for you. Take your time. You do not have to accept or decline an offer in the moment. You don't have to say yes right now while you're on the phone. It's completely fair to ask for a little time to consider it. In fact, they usually expect you will want a little bit of time. The only thing that I do recommend here is asking if there's a specific time that they want you to get back to them. So you could say, listen, I really appreciate it. Is it okay if I take a little bit of time to, discuss it with my family and all that? When would you need to hear back from me? Because I want to be respectful of your timeline too. HR people totally get that, and they will work with you to sort of find a time that works for both of you. Um, Also realize that your number one may not be salary at that given time for that given job. Depending on what you value the most in an offer, it could be something like paid time off, a signing bonus, sometimes the work schedule or the location. So, maybe the salary isn't the absolute highest, but the tuition assistance benefit is really useful because you have a kid who's about to go to college, and that would essentially make college very inexpensive to free. So in that case, that might be a benefit that you're valuing more at this particular time in your life. Another time in your life, maybe salary is the most important thing. Another time of your life, maybe you want the flexibility to work from home because you're taking care of family or you just want to be at home. So evaluate what you want the most and just realize it's not always money all the time. But if it is, that's fine too. And just realize you're on the same side with the recruiter. You both have the same goal. You accepting an offer that you are happy with. Frame your conversation as what you would need to commit to the company enthusiastically. So just realize you're on the same side. They want you to be happy. You want to be happy. You're just trying to figure out how to make everybody happy. And with that, we had an exercise. Oh, not quite yet. We'll get to that. Compromise is the name of the game with negotiation. Both you and the employer have what they value most, a good working relationship. From there, it's a matter of just nailing down the details. So again, you both have the same goal in mind. You want to be able to work together harmoniously. So in that sense, some compromise comes into play here. Many factors will go into a job offer. Some will be more or less important to each person. Again, as we stated, it could vary based on the time in your life. So, this activity, it seems unrelated, but what we had people do is we went into breakout rooms, and I messaged everyone individually with a few factors that they needed to sort of consider as they were talking to the other person. And the other person didn't know what the factors were. So we were negotiating where to eat. So one person would have like, is allergic to, gluten and they like this type of food and they want this type of location versus another person would have totally different ones. Essentially, you were working together to find a restaurant that would meet everybody's needs and that everybody would be happy with. And to do that, you had to negotiate a few things. Like it's like, well, okay, we can go here, but like it needs to be at this time, or can we check and see if this place has this? It was a matter of negotiating, but the idea was you were all coming together about the same thing, which is you wanted to find a place to eat. And with that, sort of looking at it that way, you're looking at it as it's just a conversation with somebody, and you both want to get to the same solution. So framing, a negotiation conversation that way might be able to help alleviate a little bit of anxiety. That was the theory. All right, now let's say you've negotiated and you're ready to move forward. You've come to the agreement. Once you're all finished negotiating, you get it all settled up so you can start your job. So you want to get it in writing. I recommend waiting until you have an offer letter in hand to give notice at your current job. This is just to make sure everything is formalized, and squared away. It's all in writing. Everybody agrees to everything. Giving 2 weeks notice at your current job is customary, barring extenuating circumstances. So, if it's like you're ill or something like that, or you're moving or something like that, try to give 2 weeks notice. I do see sometimes people give more than 2 weeks notice, which is awesome. But you're doing the best you can to give the 2 weeks notice, but extenuating circumstances do happen. It's all about communicating with your current employer. You do not need to disclose any of your health information. So I want to make that clear too. Employers cannot ask about protected medical conditions. You may want to limit how much you disclose and for what purpose, and just know it is your choice on whether you want to disclose. I do recommend we will have a recording of the presentation with the disability law expert, and check that out, for some strategies that she has mentioned. But I will say from this end, you do not need to disclose too much. And in terms of accommodations, I would recommend only starting to negotiate things that you'll need on day one. So if like I I I have vision problems and I need like a reader, like a screen reader, or the thing that translates it. I don't remember the exact word, but let's say you need some sort of assistive technology. That's something you should tell them right up front, but you don't necessarily need to get into everything. So just know it's your choice, and sort of think about what you actually need and why disclosure might help in that circumstance. And it's a change. It's a huge change in your life. So, big changes like a new job can be challenging for people with mood disorders. So, with that said, I have a few tips for staying well as you're transitioning into that new job. Once you give notice, your responsibilities might shift. So, just ask your supervisor, I'm here for 2 weeks. what is helpful for me to do within that period of time. One thing that I've noticed has been really helpful is I take that 2 weeks to write essentially a user guide for the position that I'm in that they can just hand to the next person. So essentially passing my knowledge on. I've found that I tend to do that a lot when I'm moving from one job to another, but they might say, we don't need you to do this particular long-term project, but it would be very helpful if you helped with this very short-term goal or something like that. So just realize, check in with your supervisor and say, what would it be helpful for me to do within the next 2 weeks, as we transition? I do like to recommend scheduling a few days off before starting your new job if you can help it. Sometimes it just doesn't work out that way. You have to start it right away. One time I ended one job on a Tuesday and I started the next one on a Wednesday. So sometimes that'll happen, but if you can help it, it does help to have at least a couple of days off in between jobs, because that's really a great time to just decompress and not worry about work at all, because you don't have any responsibilities from your previous job and you don't have any for your next job quite yet. It's a great time to sort of reset your mind. Um, Stay consistent with your regular patterns as best as you can. Sleep, exercise, et cetera, et cetera. Extremely important for people with mood disorders because our circadian rhythms are so sensitive. So make sure that you're taking care of your wellness that way. And plan out soothing activities throughout the transitional period to keep your energy levels in check. So, that might be, the first week is going to be busy. So schedule in some time to, go to a yoga class or whatever it is that you find relaxing, to make sure that you're maintaining the even moods and whatnot. So, job offers encompass many factors. What works best for you is as nuanced and unique as you are. Knowing what you value will help you to get a job that works for you. And with that said, I have a few resources. There were some worksheets and templates that were offered after this workshop was offered live. If you're interested in that, feel free to email info@tbsacalifornia.org and we can hook you up with that. You can watch the recording of the previous workshop on our YouTube channel. So where you found this, you can find all the other presentations. Glassdoor is a good source not only of salary research, but also reviews of individual companies. They also sometimes list the benefits that different employers will offer beyond salary. So you can kind of get a sense of what the package might look like even before they give you that. A good book on negotiation that I would recommend is a book called Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. I believe he was a CIA negotiator, like a hostage negotiator, but he has some great tips on negotiating things way less high stakes than that. So I recommend checking that out. If you're in college or you graduated from one, your career center on campus can help you with evaluating offers. So you can go in there and kind of say, I would like to an appointment to discuss this offer. You can also do like a mock negotiation with them. They'll practice with you. So that's great. If you have access to that resource, a lot of times, even after you've graduated, you can go back and kind of do that with the Career Center. Payscale and salary.com are also some good sources for researching typical salary in different industries too. These are some references. And thank you so much. I appreciate you taking the time to watch this recording. Feel free to go back to the YouTube channel and check out any of the other ones that might interest you. And I hope to see you at an upcoming session. Thank you so much. Have a good one.